October 1990. A United States law blocked 28 F-16s intended for Pakistan. Pakistan had paid for 17. 11 were ordered using United States military financing credit. The obvious story is that this cutoff created the JF-17. It did not. A precursor was already on the drawing board, and the deeper foundation at Kamra had begun 19 years earlier. The JF-17 did not begin with a jet. It began with a repair problem. The law was the Pressler Amendment. President George H.W. Bush did not issue the required nuclear-related certification for fiscal year 1991. Production of the aircraft continued, but Pakistan could not take delivery. Years of storage, negotiation, and settlement followed. For Pakistan, the lesson was brutal. Paying for a frontline fighter did not guarantee access when law and geopolitics changed. In 1971, Pakistan began establishing the ability to overhaul its Chinese-built F-6 fighters at home. That sounds less dramatic than designing an aircraft. It was not. Overhauling a fighter means more than replacing parts. Engineers must inspect structures and engines, measure wear, track thousands of components, and prove that the rebuilt aircraft is safe to fly. Chinese specialists supervised the creation of the F-6 rebuild facility at Kamra. In 1980, the first overhauled F-6 emerged from it. That first overhaul did more than reduce foreign exchange costs and downtime. It moved more technical work and judgment into Pakistan. That is the quiet infrastructure behind every later claim of self-reliance. Some of the next rungs were already being built in parallel. PAC began its Mirage overhaul project in 1974 and established MFI-17 manufacturing after a 1975 agreement. By 1994, Pakistan and China were co-producing the K-8 trainer. Each step mattered because aircraft production is not one invention. It is a chain of skills: maintenance, tooling, quality control, manufacturing, testing, and finally, design participation. Kamra was learning that chain. Pakistan began fielding F-16s in the early 1980s. They offered a modern Western capability, but they did not create a domestic production line. The Air Force still faced a longer-term problem: finding an affordable fighter it could support and produce in larger numbers. That fighter would eventually be tasked with replacing the A-5, F-7, and Mirage fleets. In 1987, Grumman worked with Pakistan and China on a concept called Sabre II, based on the Chinese F-7. It did not become a production fighter, but the idea continued. On 14 November 1988, Aviation Week reported that China and Grumman were beginning preliminary design work on an improved aircraft called Super-7. The report explicitly connected it to the Sabre II work of the previous year. That date changes the story. Super-7 was already on the drawing board almost 2 years before the F-16 cutoff. The 1990 Pressler cutoff did not create the fighter project. It made the strategic reason for controlling one much harder to ignore. The next part is often compressed into a single sanction story. It was actually 2 different ruptures. First came the aftermath of the 1989 Tiananmen crackdown in China. American restrictions disrupted United States defense cooperation with Beijing, and Grumman left the Super-7 effort. The second rupture came in October 1990, when President George H.W. Bush did not issue the Pressler certification for fiscal year 1991. The statute then barred assistance and military transfers, and the F-16s in the pipeline were not delivered. In Washington, this was enforcement of a non-proliferation law. In Pakistan, the episode became evidence that access to purchased systems could be turned into leverage. Together, the 2 ruptures strengthened the appeal of a different kind of partnership, with production and support rooted at Kamra. The project returned in formal form at the end of the decade. An official Pakistan Senate report records a 1998 memorandum to co-design, co-develop, and co-manufacture a fighter based on Pakistan Air Force requirements. A formal cooperative agreement followed in 1999. That wording is important. This was not only a purchase order for a finished Chinese aircraft. Pakistan was committing to a development program and to the industrial work needed to keep the aircraft in service after delivery. The official replacement list named the A-5, F-7, and Mirage fleets. It did not name the F-16. The division of credit matters. The Chengdu Design Institute led the engineering. Pakistan set the air staff requirements, helped define the aircraft, and participated in design, development, and manufacturing. PAC later took on final assembly and flight testing. Calling it a completely indigenous Pakistani design would erase the Chinese contribution. Calling it merely a Chinese aircraft with a Pakistani badge would erase the capability Pakistan had spent decades building. The real achievement was the partnership itself, a fighter designed around Pakistan's needs, with production knowledge and maintenance access moving into Pakistan. It was not independence from every supplier. The aircraft would use the Russian RD-93 engine. Important systems and weapons would still come from abroad. Dependence had been redistributed, not eliminated. The first FC-1 prototype rolled out in May 2003 and flew in August. Basic flight testing concluded in 2007. On 23 March that year, the aircraft appeared publicly in Pakistan as the JF-17 Thunder. Then came the milestone that changed the meaning of the program. In November 2009, the first JF-17 produced at Pakistan Aeronautical Complex was handed over to the Pakistan Air Force. A handover ceremony can look symbolic. A working production line is not. It means trained people, tooling, inspections, spares, repair knowledge, and a process that can be repeated for the next aircraft and adapted for the next block. PAC says it holds 58% of the work share in JF-17 airframe co-production. That does not mean 58% of every system in the complete aircraft. It means a majority of the airframe co-production work is assigned to Pakistan. Consider the distance between the two dates. In 1971, Kamra began building the ability to overhaul an imported F-6. 38 years later, it delivered a frontline fighter produced through a joint program. Pakistan had not achieved complete self-sufficiency. The engine was Russian. Much of the engineering was Chinese. The supply chain remained international. What Pakistan gained was more control over the aircraft's life: final assembly, airframe production, maintenance, and modification. That did not remove foreign dependence, but it meant the future of a large part of the fleet would not rest on a single American delivery decision. The 28 F-16s still matter. They were the warning. But Kamra was the foundation. And in Part 2, we will see why building an airframe was only the beginning. The harder question was how to turn that airframe into a weapons system Pakistan could keep changing for itself.